Oop. Switched a bit early. Oh gosh, hang on a second. Hang on, let me just get this. Okay, so let's have a look at the chat. Just 1 second. Let me just get things going. Okay, just 1 sec. Let me just pop out this stuff. Hang on. Restream. Hang on 1 second. I just got to get this stuff up. I thought I had a minute. I was changing stuff because I started to stream and I'd forgotten to do the stream key, and then that fucked up because I've got a button and then it automates and then it's counted from that first hit, not the second hit. So just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so we've got the chat open because today I can actually interact with the chat because it's a bit more freeform. There's nothing in particular. I do kind of want to say some stuff, but like it's a little bit more interactive today. So what I want to do is make it so that it's a bit clearer what's interactive and what's not. And I'm trying to figure out a way to do that so that I'm not being that person either. So because I actually watch it back and I go, I'm a little reactive, but again, that's just more because I'm trying to I don't want to make people feel bad, but at the same time, it is difficult to navigate, right? It's not something that people, people make it look easier than it is. And the people that do succeed at sort of that kind of thing do compromise on their content, but they're also rare. Like someone like Hassan Piker, who can just like that's a wizard skill. It's a skill. It's amazing. Like his ability to just see that. Like I couldn't deal with that. But also a lot of people have producers, or they have they make their chats or the things that they interact with sort of paid only, or they ignore the chats and then don't have it. I have a different way of doing it. I do try to keep, because obviously, not a whole heap of people are watching, it becomes something where I do like to be, again, it is that sort of barrier, that line, not barrier, that line between sort of polite because people are showing up and being grateful and, every content creator walks that line when you're building a community. They walk that line between being grateful for the audience and being grateful for all of the stuff, but also needing to kind of go, well, I can't be all things to all people, can't do all the things, and when you add in something like ADHD or whatever, like it's just not, something's got to give. And one of the things that I do try to do in this crazy, weird project that, for some reason I don't know why, but I like it, is to try and figure like a way forward through that, which is to try and show people that maybe, they to sort of look at their own, like, because, a lot of content creators do struggle to set boundaries and they let their audience own them. And I've never, ever, ever let that happen, because that is part of I think the broader problem that we've got is that people think that because they watch you that that you owe them something, or that you're friends. Like, one problem that I've had recently is people who follow me on Twitter thinking that we're friends. And it's like, well, no, you follow me on Twitter. I give you see that version of me. Like, again, this is just parasocial relationship stuff, right? Where people who think that because they read your stuff, or because they, give you $1 or whatever, that, you have that intimate relationship. But, that is something that you got to work on, like there's people who, obviously also there's people who I already know, or I've already gotten to know, or I've met in real life, or, we have a lot in common. So you kind of, it's a bit more, intimate. But I'm just saying, like, there's got to be, I mean, obviously when you're doing professional consulting in this, you can do it with a diagram, and you can use a circle, and you can say, well, here's your inner circle, here's your outer circle, here's the thing, here's how to manage that. There's all IP around these things, but you can't, but they're, like, these things do actually require, some strategy, some thought. And I do try to do that in real time, because I'm not somebody who necessarily wants to do that stuff. I'm trying to find a line for myself between, that's something that I try to walk and find, so I can help others set boundaries and figure that out for themselves, maybe for those who have a bigger audience or want to do it, so that they don't get in so far deep that they, they kind of end up really unhappy. Like, we're seeing that with a lot of content creators and, people behind the scenes who are just, they're sort of shadows of themselves. They're not doing, they're not happy. They're at the mercy of an audience that they didn't expect to be, especially it's linked pretty much to this whole thing that I want to talk about with this gender critical shit, right? And you end up with this audience that you didn't want, or that you don't necessarily, but because obviously they're a source of income, or they're a source of audience, it's very, very hard to walk away from those things and end up in a position where you are shouting into the void. And I've always been quite happy to do that. And so I've always been quite happy to lose people who aren't on board with that, and hope and be confident that we have so much content out there, so many people. It's just a numbers game, which is the fact that if you don't like what I do or say, then don't watch it. Go watch someone else. Go watch someone who does pander to you, and you can steamroll, and you can, I'm not talking to anyone here. I'm just saying in general, like, this is just your average sort of. When I talk about these ideas, I'm straw manning a certain behavioral profile of a user, right? But it's So the void shouting back, that's fine too, right? The void shouting back, that's fine. That's just fucking around and finding out, right? That's not something that bothers me per se. But it is also something that I think I think this is where it's actually, that's a good point. This is what, okay. So did that chat actually pop up? Did it show? I can't see is the chat working? Can you tell me if the chat's working? Because I want to make sure that, like, people, I'm not just talking at a fucking invisible box. But sorry, it popped up and then disappeared. If you can tell me if it did pop up on the actual screen? The chat is ready. Okay, so it is now, but I don't know if it did before. So just in case, Matt, okay, so he said just got to watch out for when the void shouts back. And I don't think voids should do that personally. And I think that's been part of my project to an extent, is like the gap here is in user entitlement. And a lot of what I've talked about before is that we actually created this beast, or this idea that just because you're on the internet, and this is just, this affects women like tenfold, right? Because just because women are in public, everyone thinks that a woman in public is public property to begin with, right? So that's a whole other thing. But this idea that just because someone puts something on the internet there's this mindset that they are there and they are fodder for whatever fucking bullshit bad day that you're having, or that that someone who would ordinarily bill out at, say, hundreds of dollars an hour and is doing whatever and having fun or whatever, somehow then, because you give them $1, that you own them and their time, and that that you can somehow use and give and withdraw that dollar and make that conditional on them doing what you want. It's like, this has been sort of my ultimate thing that I'm trying, project, I suppose, is to try and develop some stuff around that mindset. Now, you're not going to be, that's the thing about certain people, and it will link to, I've always been honest with the people that watch my stuff, right? Always been honest about where I'm at, what's going on. I have never had any reason to deceive or lie. And, I it's just not in me to do that. If I was going to do that, I would lie about something that was profitable, right? But I do try to model that. I do try to just go, all right, I'm in the moment. I'm showing up. This is me. I am what I am. I don't have, I know myself well. I know my downsides. I know my upsides. I know my tendency to get a bit condescending. I know my tendency to assume that, like, everyone else doesn't have something valid to say, even though that, that's a spectrum thing. That's, that's a young Sheldon. I'm like young Sheldon. I'm going to be a bit like that sometimes, especially when I'm the host of the show. But on the other side of that coin is, as an audience member, this idea that that people aren't human behind your screen, that people don't have a finite amount of time and resources, that your bad day doesn't need to be my bad day, and that you're taking your bad day out on other people. That's on you. Okay. That's something that, and this is, again, it goes from cam girls on porn sites where men just dump their shit on them, right, to men who use sex workers and, like, to do the things they can't do to other women, right up to that mindset of, celebrities and feeling like you can just slag off celebrities and dehumanize people. That's something that's on you. Like, and this is the thing where I've been working through this thing, like through my whole journey online. Okay. Which was that when I was in my 20s and when I was younger and the internet was new and also somewhat, anonymous. I was never anonymous, but, my experiment was always one of those things. Okay, when you grow up you grow up in Australia, right? One of those things is like, say it to my face, right? Never, talking behind someone's back or not just owning it, okay, saying it. I've always been, for better or worse, okay, for richer, for poorer, all of those things, there's upsides and downsides, right? But for better or worse, I've always just said what I mean. If I have been wrong or I have hurt someone or if I have done anything, then I agree that I have, I'll state my case, I'll apologize. And I think more people need to sort of approach things. That's the thing I think that's been very surprising for me, is how few people are honest, okay, with not just other people but themselves about their own motivations, why they're being horrible. Like, I've noticed a direct relationship between how, like, unhappy I am and how funny I am, okay? That warrants pause, okay? Which, yes, a lot of the funniest, darkest jokes or the most interesting, engaging content, okay, the most outrageous things that get reach, they usually happen when I'm in a down, like there's a flip side to that, which is that it's usually when I'm not in a good state of mind that content travels the most. Or that like people, and we know why, obviously, we know intellectually why people respond to that kind of stuff, right? The struggle sessions or rage bait, clickbait, all that sort of stuff, all the emotional shit. But I'm being genuine right now and saying what I've personally been through. The iPad story, right, in 2011, I've actually thought that I'm going to try and write the book, but I'm going to do it backwards. What I'm going to try and do, and I'm going to say try because, again, I'm always stretched so thinly, but that's okay. What I'm going to try to do this week, okay, is record it as a serial podcast first, audiobook thing first, which will force me to write the chapters and finish writing the chapters so that I can record it. So it's like it has no material difference in terms of the work that I have to do, but it does reframe the way that I'm working it. So I'm going to try it that way because I've got to do all these little tricks to try and motivate myself and stuff, right? But the iPad thing is, I'm writing about this, but the iPad thing is a really good example of that, which is that, yeah, it was funny at the time. It was, one of a few things where, they got traction. But every time I think about what I've gone viral for, right? I haven't gone viral for a while, but what I've gone viral for or what I've been remembered for is stuff where I've not been I've not been my best self. Right. The iPad thing, I was, I'd had a couple of wines. I was like upset from my divorce. I was fucking pissed off from being abused by fucking men on dating sites constantly. And I was just like, fuck this shit. And I said, oh, well, I'll just give an iPad away for that was a cynical joke, but it actually was, I was quite vulnerable at the time. Right. And it's the same thing with, there's been times where I've had tweets, obviously I've had tweets screenshotted quite a bit in the media, okay, where I've been snarky or, a lot of my early blog posts were quite vicious and snarky. Like on one of the old comedy blogs that I used to write for back in the day, I used to do Biggest Loser recaps, right? And I used to call it Dance Fatty Dance, which is funny, right? Again, it's funny. I'm good at funny. I'm good at dark humor, right? But that dark humor comes at a cost because it usually comes at either my cost or at someone else's. That's something I've always been aware of and I've always struggled with. Like some people don't. Some people rationalize it and go, that's what, give the people what they want. Okay. You become a tool for others to, have a struggle session or agony aunt or fucking, you become a prop for other people's baggage, right? And that's okay. That's what the, comedy catharsis, that's what the whole thing is, right? But that does have an impact on you on your psyche. If every day you're looking for the dark parts of life and every day you are, or you need, you've got to think about these things. And I've often always struggled with it because, I tend to be an idealistic person. I tend to be somewhat utopian. I tend to see the best in people. I'm generally pretty positive. Even when I get into really this, it's quite funny actually because I get into really dark places, but that's because I enjoy the content that comes out of the dark place. The content that, honestly, I think that the dark comedy is the easy comedy. If that makes sense, because it's painful and pain is everywhere and it's easy and it is the easy joke. And I'm not saying in all cases, okay, obviously there's amazing dark comedians and obviously you need an element of bravery and there's other factors that go into real good dark comedy, right? I just think about it, like writing dark, writing snarky, writing, these things. It's much, much harder to make people laugh in a positive way. Okay. Does that make sense? It's really hard. But it is because the internet is oriented towards negative, right? Negative emotions, rage, anger, frustration, political shit, gore, violence, porn, all the horrible parts of humanity. The internet orients in that direction. It is challenging. You can't get cut through when you try to do positive stuff, but also people are fatigued from the negative stuff. I think we're actually, when we're looking at the climate, and I think a lot of, especially Gen X, right, or elder millennials, depending on what year you're looking at. I'm on the border of those things. But it was really cool to be horrible to people, right? Horrible to think that, the cool, snarking at the cool kids, right? That was fun. It was funny, being left out. That was it's good content. It's, but if no one wants to be in the room with people who are just constantly negative, negative energy, right? They really don't. And so, I've obviously managed to turn some of these things into positives. Like a big part, the big role of a lot of this stuff. I know I'm waffling, but a big part of this stuff is because I've been through a lot of shit. And I know how to turn that stuff back around and make people laugh. But, it is an art form, and it's not an art form that I've necessarily perfected, right? At all. Like, I don't think anyone really, there's very few people that have really perfected that art form and not come unstuck in the long term when it comes to their own personal lives, right? But also, I think when we've seen what we've seen in the last few years, where you just see so much just horror around you, okay? The ugliness of humanity is just in front of us all of the time. That, it does make you wonder whether you want to keep adding to it. It makes you wonder whether you want to be part of it. It makes you wonder whether, it really is working for you, And like I had this interaction yesterday, and like it was just really interesting because obviously we've seen all this stuff with Twitter, and we've seen all this stuff with, this whole thing with the gender critical stuff and feminists and, going in exactly the direction that people like me have been saying for many, many years it would go if you didn't fucking pull your heads in, watching things come home to roost. But, there's always going to be that. But hang on, let me just think. Oh, yeah. So Matt said, just be what and who you are, and people listen or not. You're stepping up to do something you've said before you found challenging, and that is worth respect and respectful discourse. Well, that's the thing. And it was very strange. Actually, it comes back to that interaction yesterday. And so I could actually sit here. And so if I was like me 10 years ago, right, I would pretend that like it didn't get under my skin. I'd just pretend that it was fine and it's funny, and I would just make jokes about that, about that guy, tell him to fuck off, which I did, but that's for a different reason. And, I had an interaction where basically, he hit all the tender spots, right? Which is that for some reason it was just like, oh yeah, apparently because women who talk about politics online or try to provide answers to people are spazzing out or boring, the usual fucking shit, right? And it actually was a carryover from a few weeks ago where when Threads launched, and he was bragging about how his first Thread post was that trans women are men. And I was like, well, you're just going through wrecking platforms. And then basically it was, so I was just like, well, again, it's like what I was saying before about how, well, that's on you. Like, what do you, but I also happen to know that person is in a lot of pain. Okay, I happen to know that person lives with a lot of physical pain, and that that seems to be an outlet for him. He's very bitter. Okay, and that's okay, but that's not my problem, and it's also not everyone else's collective problem. So like going on to so this is what I actually said this. Remember how when Threads launched, and I said that Threads and Twitter can coexist for this thing, which is that like Twitter is where you can go and be horrible and gross, but consuming. There's a direct relationship between how long I've like used Twitter or X or whatever the fuck, how often I use that, and my mood. Okay, Twitter is where you go to feel shit about everything. Okay, and Threads are trying to do something a little more pro-social. And I'm sorry, but if you're going onto it and just wrecking it, then you're basically just someone who's not really. I don't consider you worthy of respect, because these tools are not a right. And this is one of those things where, especially when you're talking about like censorship and you're talking about bans, or you're talking about, all of these sort of things, you're actually not fixing the problem. You're the reason that people's behavior when they're doing this horrible, stupid shit, that's the stuff that gets me caught in the net and affects me. Okay. That's just a completely selfish, it's just backwards in the fact that it's no consideration. It's just a lack of empathy for others, a lack of consideration for other users. And, you can say that you've got tech experience until the cows come home. You obviously don't have any fucking social skills because, and it was really, so that's been simmering along. So we had that little fisty, argy-bargy thing like a couple of weeks ago where I said, you know what, you need to be take some responsibility for the way that you interact on these platforms. Like that. I don't know why anyone wears these things as bands or anything like that as badges of honor. You're just a troll. And you're actually the problem that I'm trying to fight, which is, how that tension between your behavior and being horrible and your right to participate, right? You're not making my job any fucking easier. It's like with the Kiwi Farms thing. It's like, well, I don't want to have to defend this stuff, but you're making it, don't make it worse for people who are actually pretty well behaved and trying to do the right thing. And so anyway, so you're obviously hanging on to that grudge, but also I've been talking, he's decided he's another king of woman mountain who's decided that he's a feminist now, because there's a lot of men in the gender critical movement who, because it's now called gender critical, women are having fewer issues with these men that are attaching themselves to this movement, which was a feminist critique. Started out as a critique by radical feminists who were on the left. There was a cleavage that I've talked about many, many times, okay, between radical feminists and liberal feminists that has existed for a very long time, okay? But somehow these dudes and the right and all of these like fucking conservative Christians have glommed onto it, and it's called gender critical, okay? Because they don't want to attach themselves, because basically it's basically they've decided that feminists, if you're a feminist and you identify as a feminist, gender critical specifically was designed for people who don't want to call themselves feminists, and you're seeing that play out. Okay, so that's why, I'm not one to sort of release, but it is really funny. You can tell that people are fucking with you or whatever. And that there's, again, when you've been around long enough, when there is like bitching going on that you can't see about you. When there's a fucking WhatsApp group about you, because they just show up and they say the same dumb shit. And it's like, well, I've got my own little section of anti-fans. That's great. I love it. So, and it was, that's fine. Anti-fans, like I said, anti-fans can be good for you. But, I don't need to listen to it, and I don't need to receive it, and I don't need to see the mentions, and I don't fucking, whatever. It's neutral. You're going to have, see, the thing about the internet, like I was saying before, is that you're going to have anti-fans. If you have fans, you're going to have anti-fans, because there's people who are just horrible and they like to snark. Like that's just their disposition, and they're horrible, and that's par for the course. And, as when you are somebody who does content or whatever, you can know that they're going to exist. You can't go through. This is why when on LinkedIn you see that sort of pathological fear of like annoying people or saying anything wrong or whatever. See, I'm not afraid, because I know that the nature of the beast of putting yourself out there, especially when you're a woman online, or putting yourself out there, putting your thoughts out there, especially in politics or especially in tech. For every fan, you're going to have an anti-fan. That's just how it works, okay? But you don't actually need to. You can't, the shift of thinking for me was that those anti-fans could be used and leveraged to promote yourself, which I don't do now. I won't do that, because I know that there's obviously a broader political impact or implications for doing that kind of thing when dabbling with, I don't want to make people angry all the time, okay? People are going to hate me. People have hated me since I was little, because I was smart and precocious and fucking big mouth, and I not very good in the EQ department and all that stuff. There's nothing that someone can say about me that I don't already know, okay? But I think it's also something that I find hilarious when dudes just show up and think they're telling me something I don't know. But this one did get under my skin, because it is that whole you think you're better than me stuff, right? With people who I find it funny. It's like there is just this, and Matt might actually be able to talk to this, a chip on the shoulder of people who haven't been to uni. And it's like, I don't consider that. I do value it. I think that the university education does outrank you when it's something that requires a university education. You do have some, because you've studied it. It's an experience thing. It doesn't mean that all vocations need a university degree for you to have qualifications in the thing. But in something like political science in particular, that is something that requires you to study it. And especially when you're pushing perspectives that are easily covered by, first year, second year undergraduate politics. Okay. People are going to arc up and go, well, you're not qualified. It's not about thinking that uni is better or not. It's just that sometimes the foundational studies in university on a particular topic like law or politics or, those sorts of things do actually answer the questions that these people are just mouthing off on, right? They actually provide, a lot of it is you're ignoring 101 things because you didn't go to university. You've missed, you don't have the foundational training. You're off sort of talking about ideas and you haven't even had the basics taught to you, right? So it's not about hierarchy or anything. It's about the fact that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So you see, it's not about that. So anyway, and then you've obviously got vocational experience, which has its own value. And right, if you're going to be a chef, you need to know how to make decent scrambled eggs and cook a steak and chop things before you start, wanting Michelin stars. Like, that's just how it works, okay? It's not about the university education. It's about the fact that you've trained in it. Okay. So, and that's the problem, I think, with the content factory in general, is that, I get all these fucking content people who have no qualifications and they haven't done the basic training. And I'm just basically like, well, no, this is a foundational politics 101 concept. And it explains everything that you're fucking talking about. But you're also creating an audience and nurturing an environment that, you're building these straw men and you're inciting a thing that is based on a lie, such as that, that woke is left for a start. But all of these premises that are they're false. And it's actually just based on and you build this whole insanely illogical thing based on something where the premise is just not correct, such as that socialism is centralized authority, like Stalinist government, or that somehow it is it's okay. So Matt said university is a tool and an accelerator. Without it, you'll probably have to work harder to get on top and stay on top. It's not, I think so. I think from a practical point of view, yes, but I think that this is a whole separate beef with universities, which is I'm of the view that fewer people should go to university. I think that the biggest problem has been that everyone, that everything is a degree. It doesn't need to be a degree. I think that university education, I think that vocational education has a much greater role to play. And I think that obviously, I think that with the vocational university degrees, I always joke about tourism management, right? That could easily be, I'm not, and I'm not saying that this is hierarchical or anything. I'm just saying that they're different, which is the problem with because I went to Edith Cowan University, which is very much on the professional degrees angle, not professional degrees, the vocational degrees. Okay, so nursing, for example, does that need to be a degree? My dad was a nurse. Okay, I would be on the fence about that. I think you could actually train on the job. Same thing with journalists, or I honestly think that we need fewer university degrees, and I think that we need fewer universities, and I think that vocational education should be that should be the gold standard, unless you are. And what I'm talking remember, in the old days, it used to be that university was sort of theoretical, and sort of vocational was the more practical. And it doesn't mean that the two can't meet, but what it was that there was a very clear delineation between those who are learning about this shit in theory and learning about learning how to do research, learning how to, because a lot of people who want to just go into the workplace, they don't want to do research. They're already studies. They don't want to do all that sort of stuff. But in university, so you learn how to do, your sort of scientific method, or you learn as a profession, you learn, there's lots and lots and lots of things where, people don't need to go to university for it. Okay, I really truly believe that this is where a lot of this confusion lies. And university, I would even argue, and this is a controversial take, I'd even argue that maybe even medicine shouldn't be. I'm saying medicine should maybe be, you should go through vocational medicine and then go into postgrad if you want to do research or you want to do specialties or other things. I'm actually a massive supporter of vocational experience and education. I do think university has a role to play, but I think universities need to play a greater role in the theoretical, in research, in the sort of, again, it's just different ways of approaching things, right? So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, which is that when I say, a university education, something like political science, that's not something that you can learn on the job. That is something that you learn through books, and you learn through, a process, and you study, okay? It's like scholarship versus, political campaigning that could probably be learned at TAFE. So you could break out some of that more, theoretical versus practical stuff and have a different kind of setup, right? And unfortunately, you've got a lot of people, and because I've got, obviously, I've got a useless fucking degree that doesn't do me anything. So, a lot of this work that I've been talking about was just a way for me to get some value out of my fucking degree because it's like, well, okay. But when you're up against a whole content factory of people who think that they're not having a degree is equal to having a degree in something, it's like, well, no, it's just basic. It's just different levels of basic training, right? So Matt said, let me get that back up. So Matt said university can have a dangerous aspect where theory is weighted higher than practical. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like, academics drive me nuts too, right? They sit there and it's like, no, like, yeah. Academia is full of folks who haven't been in the real world, and that does not invalidate. Not invalidate uni through any means. Yeah, and that's one of those things. I think, again, part of that I think is the problem, like, which is that they've been elevated to a status that, and I think that's not. I think taking the hierarchy away from it is the best solution, which is that academics have been put on these pedestals when it's like, well, no, you're a human being with gaps as well, and there is the real world experience does not, like, I would actually argue does, like, working in the field is superior to theorizing. They should work together, like much like when it's like science versus philosophy. It's like, well, no, philosophy brainstorms the ideas, science tests it, right? Says if it works. It's the role that these things play. But unfortunately, because it's been commodified, right, it just becomes just a ticket to the next job, and people obviously resent that, right? I think we need to rethink a lot of these things, and that's why under this model, this is where AI will be fine, because it won't threaten the scholarship, because the scholarship should be moving things forward all of the time anyway. There's too many people who are like just doing. I think if you could be replaced by AI, you got to look at your. Yeah. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. But but it was very strange, because basically all I've ever done is be Taya online and said what Taya thinks. And like, I think a lot of people don't realize what it actually costs you to put yourself out there. I think a lot of people, because they're just so used to hiding behind anonymous accounts or getting what they want because they're being nasty. Okay. In the case of this particular guy, I think he's made a living for himself being a fucking asshole to people, right? And that's snark. That snark that's cool in your 20s and in your 30s and 40s, it just makes you like bitter and gross and unappealing to hang around, right? But then obviously I know that I sit there as somebody who, I know I annoy people. I know people don't like me. No one's ever liked me because I've got a big fat fucking mouth. I think about things and I say what I'm thinking, and it's straight up and down, and I participate. And it's just very funny how all of these dudes who are all about free speech are the first people to harass anybody who is saying stuff that they don't like. And it's just very strange. It's like they're all about themselves and not about others. It's very lacking in social awareness, like very extremely low EQ shit, which is that, I'm exercising my right to participate. You showed up in my mentions harassing me. That's not your free speech. You're actually just, it's just so backward. It's so fucking backward, right? Where it's like, you know that it's just woman having opinions online. Having a bad day. Let's make her day as shit as let's make her feel as shit as I feel. Okay. It's as simple as that. And let's dehumanize this person. And let's just, because she's saying something that really hits me in the guts, which is that maybe I'm not as good as I think I am, and that maybe I'm part of the problem, and that, people, again, people tend to act out when you hit a button. Okay. And I'm the same, like he hit a button. Again, I could pretend that I'm one of those people. I'm unaffected by people saying things like that. Like he said, I think, what was it he said? That I was spazzing out and that no one, here we go, no one engages with my stuff, because men or women, because I'm always spazzing out. And I think that I'm a pastor with all of the answers, when it's just that here we go, the old misogynistic card, crazy and boring, the usual. It's like, well, no, just here. And he's like, I think I'm some oracle or genius or something. I was like, I've never said that. I fucking say the opposite. I don't think that I'm anything. I'm trying to work shit out and I'm existing online, and you seem to have a problem with that because I said that your favorite fucking fascist Barbie is not helping women and that you are being horrible and you are part of the problem. And if you have a problem with that, then okay, but yeah, I find it very weird, actually. And then obviously, it's funny because, again, you've got these metrics. You can see people bookmark the tweets, right? They bookmark you and they go, yeah, that's because they're going to share it in their fucking WhatsApp group, right? They don't interact, but they share it in their little group. And then they fucking sit there and they report the tweet or they do whatever, okay? I know I'm not dumb. Again, they think that when I say I'm not stupid, it doesn't mean that I think I'm a genius. It means I'm not fucking stupid. And I know if I was because I used to be a snarky person who watched the cyberbullying and I also have been on the receiving end of this specific type of person, which is mummy forum types, and they set up all these little splinter groups and these little gossip groups, and also I have eyes and ears and fucking tentacles everywhere, and I get shared the shit. So people pretending it's like, yeah, you're the one who's like spazzing out and thinking that I don't know what the fuck's going on. And it's like, okay, so what happened with this thing was I've always just been consistent, which is that I just in IT. I'm just, just a person who got a little bit of influence, nothing great. I know social people used to pay me to do like a lot more sort of viral guerrilla campaigning off the back of the things that I used to do. I used to do a little bit of that sort of stuff, but it was mostly just running an agency as but I always had this sort of I always had influence without wanting it. But people would come to me and I'd leverage it, and so I thought, okay, well, this thing is a problem. I think that unless, the Labor Party here or various political operatives or activists or whatever start to have the conversation and deal with this sort of confusion around sex versus gender, that there's going to be problems down the line. And also what I've observed is, through my own experience and through others, is that there's this funnel that is pulling women who are being radicalized into the far right, especially in the US, where they're, people who are supporting the What is a Woman documentary. And then you've got, like those sorts of things where it's literally just that Daily Wire engine trying to radicalize people, right? That's a thing. And, Nazis showing up to your fucking women's rally and all this sort of shit. It's like, you got to think about it. And that was all I ever did and I also opposed the censorship, I was like, okay, so I didn't have inside knowledge. I didn't really have any contacts at Twitter. So I was left reverse engineering it. Like I just was trying to keep people from going in that direction. Now, that guy who attacked me yesterday is very much interested in simping for certain people whose objectives are exactly the thing that I'm trying to fight, which is, funneling women into far right fucking politics and being anti-feminist and all those sorts of things. He's obviously very much a misogynist, right? And those trigonometry bros and all those guys, they fucking, they're not honest actors. Okay. So obviously I'm, a target. Okay. I'm surprised. What's funny to me is I'm not more of a target than I am, because they will quite happily bully a young single mum online, right? But they won't bully me because, again, it's just one of those things. They'll do it in secret, right? Again, I just know these things. because they're fucking cowards, and because I've had fisticuffs with them before, and they know that I won't back down. And but it's quite funny to see, because it's just weird, because really, it's 2023 now. And in UK Labor, they're only just starting to, obviously the court cases are switching. Like, obviously people have won their lawsuits and, starting to get roughly settled, okay? Sex versus gender, women's rights. It's really annoying that we've had to spend, 6-7 years going through all of this stuff and now de-radicalize all these fucking women because, it took 6-7 years to clear up the bleeding obvious. But at the end of the day, we're getting there, and it's like fighting for the obvious, right? And I just spoke up about something that I thought was an issue, which was, Jessica Yaniv represented a big sort of gap in this area, right? Not hard. But then I started to sort of go, all right, well, I need to understand this thing. So I set up the YouTube channel, and obviously I'd gotten sick, so I had some time on my hands, and I was a little obviously disillusioned with tech as well, because I felt like this was such a glaring failure of duty of care towards women and towards users and towards those that are it's just massive failure. And they were refusing to hear it, that I had no choice but to quit, because I was like, well, I can't operate in an environment where I'm going to have to pretend that this is not heavily manipulated, where it's not, I can't take money from people and pretend that it's organic. I just can't do that. It's just not honest. And so, I just spoke out and I said, well, I wanted to sort it out so I could go back to work. I wanted to clarify and get the policy changed and go, you're banning women. This is a problem. There's an attack vector here. Use, various things, and there's a loophole. And then 6 years later, I'm fucking still shadow banned and still fucking fucked with and still bullied by these dumb fucks who I didn't want anything to do with in the first place. All I did was speak up and defend them and just be a citizen. I've never claimed to be a genius. I've just had people along the way who go, okay, well, oh, she knows stuff. All right, well, let's see how we go. And I stay in my lanes. And, like anyone else, I just sort of try to figure stuff out and try to be a voice of sanity for people. And for the most part, that feedback is that that's the case. Like this, it's funny how you get, 100 people saying, oh, keep going, blah, 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 I value you in the back end and, in the background and stuff like that. You get lots of messages, because around, obviously with a debate like this or around tech, first of all, tech's quite tricky to sort of understand. I get people asking me a lot of basic tech things, but also just the basics of what I'm talking about, but also, people don't understand their basic sort of fundamental political theory, even those who claim that they do, which is that, the answer is capitalism, my guy. If you read the basics, it's pretty fucking boring and easy. Okay? And it's not like, capitalism is like the evil. You're just completely misunderstanding the whole fucking thing. All right? They're just models, and capitalism goes in this direction. It's how it behaves. Calm down. But I never intended for this to go so long, if I'm honest with you. I always intended for it to just be, well, hey, peers, hello, this is a problem. This is you need to be making sure that these automated systems are not being, abused by various actors on the platform, and, it's got this political outcome. And then, obviously you come under attack by all these things and you sort of double down. And I saw it as an opportunity to just go, well, okay, let's see what happens. And I like streaming. I quite like doing this, right? But it's just, I didn't think it would go this long. And I didn't think that it would, again, I've had these dumb fucking mummy forum GC people fucking hunting in packs since the day I showed up on the internet. It's nothing since not the day I showed up on the internet, but the day I first started being a adult woman with a baby on the internet years ago. I've been pack hunted by these fucking bitches who who don't like anybody who's smarter than them. And I've always been attacked by these queen bee fucks, but unfortunately, you also get a bunch of men who attach themselves to these women too, who love, then they claim that they speak for women. It's like, no, you speak for bullies, and they are cyber bullies, and they are a problem on the internet and have always been a problem on the internet. And unfortunately, there is a business model that encourages them now. Whereas before it was just they were a cyber bully and they were just bored housewives. Now, bored housewives get to make money and run events and call it fucking activism when it's not. And that's the problem, is that you can build a funnel for any purpose. Okay. Yeah, but being an adult woman on the internet is illegal. Yeah, especially from those who think that everyone has free speech. The ones who love free speech are the first people to hate fucking women being on the internet. Well, they want women on the internet, but only when they got their tits out. And that's the problem. They don't like having your opinions out, right? If you are an e-girl, then you're going to do great. And also if you're willing to take their bullshit, then, for cash, then obviously, they're going to feel better. That's actually one phenomenon that I've noticed is grown-ass middle-aged men, right? Which is that there's this funny thing where you can tell it's like they elevate these women like they're great thinkers or smart. It's like, she's so smart. It's like, no, she's not. She's pretty. You're calling her smart and you're giving her money and you're just saying she's smart. It's like, dude, you only read Playboy for the stories too, I'm sure of it. It's like, get fucked. And it's like, we see through that, but it's grown-ass men who should know better. But that halo effect is a very powerful thing, which is like, where it's like, she's not that clever. But they're like, she's one of the greatest thinkers and authors of our time. And it's like, no, she's got dick-sucking lips and big boobs. We all see it. You're full of shit. It's very funny. But, it's a pervasive problem. And again, I'm not having a go at those women. You got to work it. You got to do what you got to do. But again, if you have a basic level of training in comms or propaganda or political campaigning or anything, which is the good-looking people, if you're in advertising, the good-looking people, there's a halo effect where people think you're smarter than you are. But these guys like to pretend that anyone it's like, well, this is the lack of self-awareness. It's like, if you are a self-aware person, you are willing to acknowledge that you have your own gaps and biases, not fight others because you've got gaps. Like, I'm the person who go, I got gaps and biases, right? I've got my triggers. That fucking asshole, I wish that didn't live rent-free in my head all day yesterday and didn't crush my confidence. If I was lying to my audience or lying to the people around me or anything like that, I'd pretend that actually was funny to me, or it got under my skin. And that's the difference between an honest person and somebody who is an online bully and pretending and deflecting and pretending that they're not trying to make their pain my problem. Whereas I go, well, okay, they tried to make their pain my problem. He got me in the guts. Okay, fair enough. All right, well, let's pass. Let's consider whether it's true. No, it's not really that true because, I haven't done anything. What he's saying is false. Okay. And like, just because you're an anti-fan and you're like hanging out with other anti-fans, then, congratulations. I'm happy. I've got an anti-fan. Good on you. You're talking about me. It's like that whole Elon Musk. It's like the fact that Elon Musk lives, I said this last night. I was like, on Threads, right? I reckon you have 8 hours to keep talking about it. And then you just look weird. Okay. Once you move on, like it's frustrating for me because I know I look like a hypocrite, but it's because I'm commenting on the thing that people are commenting on. So I look like I care about that. I don't give a fuck. I just I'm just in that space where I have to fucking like comment on the thing. Right. But like, it's like if you are sitting on Threads 3 weeks after it launches, still schizo posting about Twitter, it's like, you've got a problem. You have the problem. Okay? You are the one who is obsessed And you need to look into why that might be. And that was actually what was actually funny was this was the post that kicked it off, which was that the psychology of a fan and an anti-fan are two sides of the same coin. Okay. Now, I used to think that it was neutral, that you could have fan and anti-fan, and they're fans and anti-fans. They're talking about you, right? So say de scandale, right? There's that concept, right? But unfortunately, it does have actual other consequences, which, are coming to light now. So obviously, I'm saying you don't want anti-fans, okay? Anti-fans are a problem on the internet, and you need to be promoting. You need to not be so. You need to be less chaotic neutral, to coin a term, about the whole thing. You need to understand that there is actually a political, social, psychological impact on anti-fans, and that it can escalate and it can get violent, and it does have a radicalizing component to it. And that's where, it's not benign anymore. It was, and then we realized that it wasn't. There's enough data to show that having the anti-fan psychology is really fucking unhealthy. And if you are sitting, if you're sitting in a group dedicated to picking on people or bitching about people, then you're the problem. Okay. I don't do that. Okay. I just show up and I talk about what I'm thinking about, and then I move on with my day and I do things with my life. All these people that have spent so much time bitching about everyone else, and I've gotten I didn't finish it. Obviously, I did half of a grad dip in psychology, and then I moved to law school. I'm progressing through law school, and the whole time and I've also just I've been working and doing things and moving on and figured out the problem and moved on. It's boring. This woke shit is boring. The whole thing is boring. It's going to go through the courts. It's not difficult. And the fact that, he got under my skin because he said this idea that somehow I think that I'm above it all. I am, because it's boring and it's easily explained. And no normal, sensible human fixates on this fucking issue anymore because it's solved. Okay? It's being solved through the courts. Everyone knows about it. Things are correcting. Calm the fuck down. You're driving people to fascism in the US. You're driving people to vote against their interests, and women in particular, right? And I have a problem with that, And it's like anti-fan. Exercising kindness and humanity is worth the effort generally if you don't mind getting downhearted at times. Yeah, I don't get down. I never stayed bothered for long. Like, that's the problem, I think, with, online in general, is that, people think that you care more about stuff than you do. And, and they think you care about certain things more than you do. And if you leave it out, they think you don't care. And it's like, well, no, like I will, I have a sense of dignity and decency about what I put out there. I don't share my private life. I have, you have a heavily filtered version of my life. You don't know me as a person. Yeah. And it's just, people are just doing the best they can, but, I don't see any growth or improvement or anything that, anything positive coming out of a lot of these people who are fixated on this gender critical shit. It's just not good for it's brainworms. It's just like turf brain is a fucking problem. It's a thing. But also anything political online, it's, people's brains have melted. Like you got the fucking dumb left in the US where they just, everything that deviates remotely from anything is like a problem. Like I've had this fucking guy. Oh, and it's like, I don't even know where he came from, but he's this lefty guy apparently. And it's just like, I don't understand why you love Elon Musk. It's like, I don't. I talk about Elon Musk and I defend Elon Musk where he needs it defending and like criticize where he defends because I'm a fuck in tech and people are lying. And so I sit here and I try to sort of, and people are asking me, okay, to talk about it. And it's what I'm interested in. It's neutral. It's called factual reporting, I suppose. I'm not a journalist, but I'm saying it's called truth. and getting to the bottom of the truth. I'm not neither a fan nor an anti-fan. And the problem is that fans and anti-fans have dominated this discourse to the point where it's all just a fucking, you're either a fan, you're either 1 or 0, and most normal people aren't. Nobody, like normal people are not fans or anti-fans. They just get on with their day and they go, oh yeah, it's changed to X. Okay then. You know, the only reason I'm talking about it is because I find it interesting. It's got nothing to do with like it's all just a big projection, which is that you're obsessed and others aren't. And anyone is like, and I've often said that, where on Twitter all you need to do is say something fucking normal and sane, and the nutters just come in and go, so you love that thing, so you hate that thing, why are you so obsessed with that thing? I'm not. I tweeted about it. I was on the fucking can. It took me 3 seconds. And that's like that thing where it's like people think, well, I write like maybe with long tweets or whatever. It's like people don't realize how fast I write. Like the things that I write, they're like, you know, I can write 350 words in 15 minutes and it pass. Okay, I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying it passes. I can write an essay in like an hour, right? It's not really something that is a problem for me. So when you think that I'm obsessing about something and fucking, you know, or it's too long, that says something about you. Because first of all, that shows that you can't read and retain anything for more than 3.5 minutes, because most of my stuff is probably a couple of minutes long, okay? Sometimes 10 or 11, which is long. My long form stuff that I publish, obviously I put a bit more work into. And it takes, but that just tells me you have no pain threshold for more than 10 minutes of reading. And second of all, that you're the one with a 5th grade reading level. You're the one who doesn't understand what's going on. And it's like, you know, I get this every day where people are like, I'm talking about basic concepts. That if you are mouthing off about the culture wars in any way, about any kind of the debate, and you've been around for a while, if you're saying, I don't understand what you mean, asking me to explain, I'm saying Control T, Command T, Google.com, write it, the words I said in there, look it up. You've had years to look this up. And it's like, I'm not going to explain it. Okay. I'm giving you the fucking tools that you need to like go down that rabbit hole yourself. Otherwise, if you want commission writing, you can fucking pay me for it. Okay, that's how it works under this system called capitalism and negotiation and supply and demand. That's how it works. You don't get to exploit me and ask me to do free labor because you can't be asked. Okay, it's not how it works. And so it's just funny how, but then they're like, no, but you think that you're so smart. And I go, well, I think you can't be bothered looking stuff up. But also like people, it's just a big projection where it's like, oh, she like posts like about stuff. Yeah, it takes me 30 seconds to post a tweet. Maximum, sometimes fucking 20. Sometimes a minute, max. It's like a thought, it's a fleeting thought. I just happen to be good at fleeting thoughts. Are they perfect all the time, well structured? Not always, okay? But like it's fucking, you know, at least I'm doing okay. Okay, I'm good at it. I'm good at first drafts. Okay, and they never get past first draft, but that's the problem, right? Because it's just, again, that's the resources thing, which is that I go, oh well, here's a rapid way to get it out, like with streams. Here's a rapid way to get my thoughts out. Just talk about stuff. If people show up, they show up. If they don't, they don't. Cool. Okay, not a problem. And I mean, obviously, trying to figure out a way to make money and grow an audience is a problem. But I find it funny that it's always just projection, that people think that my favorite thing is this idea that I would somehow conceal my thoughts, where like, oh yes, I'm dog whistling to whoever, or I'm secret. It's like, no, yeah, why would I do that? I've never had an alternative account. I've never done anything. I show up, I say what I mean. Okay. Occasionally I'll go, that's too private, whatever, I'll delete the tweets or whatever, okay? Or strategically, because I'm trying to get out of this fucking algo funk that I'm in, I will go through and delete some stuff, but it's not because I care about it. And if anything, I think deleting tweets is more of a problem than leaving them up, because at least if you leave them up, you can, contextualize it and go, well, yeah, I said a stupid thing. I'm trying to make sure that, that's a balance, right? But for the most part, it's like, I love this. They're just projecting their own shit onto me, and it's just hilarious. It's like, they think that I care about these things as more than I do, and they think that I have an agenda other than just saying what I think and working through in real time and seeing who comes along for the ride. And I know that most people won't, because I know that attention spans are about 2 minutes. And I know, again, because I know what I'm fucking doing. When people pay me to do copywriting, I know these principles. I know how to fucking get people going, right? But I am doing an experiment that sort of subverts a lot of that stuff. And I try... I do want to do a little bit more scripted and edited stuff, but I go, oh, it's not really. You can't be all things to all people, and I just like doing the streaming. It's not really. Don't ever think it. It's just a skill, which is that it keeps me going. So that if I am on things, or I need to do like tutorial videos or anything like that, that I have the skills and the technological ability, and also the testing of it. Right, so learning how to get better at certain things, and also because can't be asked writing because I'm tired, and I'm just stretched too thin, and Twitter becomes the place where I write, and it becomes the place where I have incomplete thoughts and first drafts and all that stuff, and then over time, I've got thousands and thousands of notes that never make it to finished and polished. But at least when Twitter, or social media or those sorts of things, when those thoughts are captured, at least it's captured like a journal, right? Twitter is just like a fucking scratch pad and journal for me. I don't give a fuck. I have reasons for things, and I'll always talk about the reasons for them, right? It is a valuable skill to be able to sit, because most people are afraid of it. Like I was afraid of it. I still don't like it. Still not my favorite thing. But it's definitely something that is a skill, and I'm never going to be as good at it as someone who's likes cameras and is done broadcast or anything like that, or is trained as a journalist, because it's not my area. But I've never claimed otherwise, and I think but that's the beauty of the internet, is that I can just show up and talk, and if people want to hear it, then they want to hear it. As I love this idea that but it is funny, because these guys, they just turn on you. Like they're fans until you say something that hits them in the guts. And then suddenly all of the baggage, all the list of grievances comes out. And it's like, well, you were watching for a while. You're interacting with me. You follow me. I wasn't following you. Okay, what? Thank you for your feedback then, I guess. Get a life, move on, go watch someone else. Cool, we've got this marvelous thing where I get to do what I do and you get to do what you do, and you can leave me the fuck alone. How's that sound? And I find that I find it really interesting when guys show up with their list of grievances and they've got years and years of like, oh, well, you think that you're some, or like, what did he, I can't remember what he said, but it's like, yeah, okay. Like, that was right in that other chat that we had. Yeah, a certificate. Yeah, have a certificate of participation. Look at you go. You learned how to comment. But like that guy, the other, where it was just like, where he thought, it was very funny, where he messaged me, and he's like standing over me, and it's like too much. Like, it's like, I'm not going to, you're taking my time, and it's just fucking unloading on me. Too much. I'm busy. I can't read all the stuff. This guy, and he's like talking about his theories and his stuff and his all this. And then when I was like, I'm busy, and and I just gave him a bit of shit on my chat. And then he's like, you think that you're like the star of the show? Yeah, the camera's here, spending my money to do this, and to, my time and my expertise. You can go set up your thing. Find that. And they're just like that. When I say, and it is funny, which is that, you can, it's not necessarily, obviously, it's not an invitation. It's not really an invitation to treat as such. You've you know, you don't have a right to just sort of crash people's spaces and crash these online platforms and act like a garbage person and expect everyone to just take it and like it and not push back. And that's where it's like, it's really funny, right? The Random Interwebs Person Show with special guest star. Exactly. Yeah, where this guy who just shows up on my chat, starts heckling me and arguing with me about my own discipline and puts me on the spot and then calls me stupid and then proceeds to go into my DMs and hurl abuse at me because that's how it goes. And because I've been around for 20 fucking how many years online, there's 30 years online, know that it goes in a specific track straight away every single time where they love you, love you, love you. You set a slight little boundary and then the abuse starts and then the abuse escalates and it escalates and it escalates every fucking time. And it always starts with these little negs where they won't respect your boundaries and you go, no. And then that's where people don't understand where when I'm interacting with the chat, I'm just whack, newspaper. Okay, because you have to do that, otherwise it escalates. And that's the reality of sort of, you know, women streaming, especially with their clothes on, talking about stuff, is that these guys will argue with you and they'll call you names. And, you know, it is funny though. It is very, very, hang on, I've just gotten a fucking message from the thing I've got, hang on. Oh no, it's fine. Sorry, I've got an admission tomorrow, so I just had to check if there was a cancellation. Health system. Yeah, but it's just, you know, I do find it funny because they can still get under your skin, but it does actually speak more to his, dare I say, the problem is with you trying to say the thing that will hurt someone else and get under their skin. And it's like, I think I could pretend that he didn't get under my skin and laugh it off and go, you know, but it does bother me because do you know what? He represents a pack of cunts, basically, who used me. And, like, they have no regard for the cost and they just moan. They moan about being censored. They moan about being banned. They attack everyone. They you know, anyone who sort of deviates from their like insane worldview of like schizo posting about trans people 24/7 under anonymous accounts, mind you, because of course they're all very brave. But meanwhile, they go and pack hunt the people who actually do put their names out there, do put stuff on the line, and do actually put their name to their words, and actually, you know, do put the actual work in, like Control-T, Google, something simple, rather than asking me to do shit for free. Lazy fucks. And all these people, it's like, and they're like, what is that? I've written about it. I've been writing about it for fucking 7 years. It's like, look it up. Watch any of the fucking hundreds of hours that I've talked to things. Oh, no, that's too much. What I need is an infographic and explainer video. Oh, good. Well, do you know who's providing those? PragerU. Daily Wire. Go there. Fucking lazy fucking dickheads. So I'm not doing that. Because I'm not going to peddle easy answers to things and lie to you for profit. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'm going to tell you that this shit affects people's lives and that you don't fucking, you know, hiding behind anonymity and WhatsApp groups and gossip groups and calling yourself an activist while willfully ignoring the fact that you are acting like garbage to people and you cannot act surprised when people don't want to engage with it anymore. It's not activism. That's just fucking human. That's just common sense that people won't want to interact with you if you abuse them constantly. They won't let you in the room because you're a fucking disruption and you're a garbage person. So moaning about these things rather than trying to make it better is like the problem. And you can blame someone like me all you like. At least I'm showing up. At least I'm using my name. At least I'm trying to be better. At least I'm trying to improve things. I'm not just sitting around making my fucking bad day everyone else's problem. And I'm not fucking, you know, I'm not a coward. You know, and it's just like, that doesn't stick for long. It got under my skin, but it doesn't stick for long because you're just somebody who's just using whatever attack vector you can to get under my skin because you're a sad, pathetic man. who has nothing better to do than snark and who has never grown out of being a teenager and who is a misogynist. Like, he even went so far as to just tag TriggerPod in it to try and, I don't know what, it's like, okay, you're trying to start some shit. All right, then, what are they going to do? Send their bros? Oh, well, they're liars. So I know they're liars and I'll tell everyone that they're liars. Who cares? I don't see that stuff, right? I don't see my replies. I don't get notified if I'm not following people. So it's like, well, go nuts, okay? You can do whatever you want, but the problem's you, not me. I operate with integrity. I admit when I make, I try to be honest with those that watch me. I'm not really very good at lying, so there's no point lying. I'll contradict myself because I'm working through ideas, but there's no grandiosity here. I'm just a boring old fucking person who entered a debate and had these dumb fucks, like that state media documentary where they took my fucking YouTube streams. They never contacted me, decided to put my face on it, and without my consent. And again, it's that whole fucking asshole idea that just because someone puts something out there that they consent to its use. And it's like, well, no, that's not yours. That's defamatory to attach me to that movement. Because I'm not. I was just doing a YouTube channel I was figuring stuff out. And I didn't get one email. I didn't get one question. They didn't ask for anything. And I am forever now attached to that movement because they put clips from my YouTube stream in their fucking documentary, right? Same thing with Graham, with Glenna, right? Where he took a tweet that I wrote that was a joke and shared it with his audience. And it's like, well, you could give people a heads up. That's just a courtesy, especially with something like that's just like just entitlement that I'm there, like that's, why would you do that? Why would you take someone else's, again, it's like, yeah, it might be public. Okay. But it's foreseeable that someone like me might get harassment from that, or it's not your right to narrate what I've got to say. And if you're going to post that shit to your own audience of radicalized fuckwads, that, you might give someone a heads up first. Okay, that's just courtesy. It's got nothing to do with, and that's the problem with these fucking lunatics, is that they just take it, right? Yeah, they just take this again, just same old fucking, dare I say, white male middle class entitlement. They think that they can just take whatever they want and do what they want, and damn the consequences. As long as you get your dopamine, as long as you get your kicks, doesn't matter. Let's just dehumanize that woman online and make her feel like shit, or, sick my fans on her. Who cares about the consequences? That's not feminism. If you care about women being bullied online, why are you taking their shit and putting it like, making them a target? I don't care about that. Okay? You care about like content, and you don't, it warrants thought. If I'm doing that to somebody, right, I get their permission. That's a common courtesy. And that's the thing about the internet, was that, there was the share and share alike idea. Yeah. But it was intended to be used in a way that was not, it was a courtesy that you would still, give credit, or you would give a link back, or you would at least consider the person who you were sharing, and, but now it's just, no, I can just take what I want and do what I want and damn the consequences. But if they complain about it or push back, they're a bitch. Wait a feminist, guys. It's like, fucking hell, like, you're backwards thinking. But there's always going to be that, that crew. And again, just because, if you know the landscape, you know that that's inevitable. I'm not moaning about people taking shit from stuff I've posted publicly. That's a risk. That's always a risk. It doesn't mean, there's a difference between me seeing it as it is and knowing it's going to happen, and me calling you out on your own psychology and your own fucking shit and your own rationalizations and going, there's something wrong with you if you do it that way. See what I'm saying? Something wrong with your conduct and your behavior because you wreck things and you feel entitled to things, and what you're doing impacts other people. And that's the inherent narcissism around these fucking snarky people or snarky blogs or these, the gender critical content creators, these groups where they're just dehumanizing anyone who they disagree with. They are mocking trans people, all of that sort of stuff. They have no consideration, absolutely no consideration for the impact on the individuals that they target, the families that are impacted by this stuff, the trauma that might be brought up for people. Nothing. Like the feminists who post gory surgery pictures on people's timelines. Fuck you for that. Okay? It's not your right. You're an asshole. You are a flasher. You are no worse than a flasher. Okay? Who does that with porn or does it with anything else. You're getting your kicks off on fucking doing that for other people. You have no consideration for how it might be received, right? Right? Well, hang on. Let me just see what you're saying. Hang on. Feminism is meant to be about true equality for both men and women, unless I'm uninformed. Yes. Well, it's basically to see women as equal humans to men. That's the first start. But also just, the thing is that's simplistic because you do have centuries of debt there. So think about technical debt in terms of IT or, UX debt or anything like that. There's debt to be paid, which is that we've got decades of disadvantage that need correcting in order to achieve that, right? Like that's where it's like, well, it's okay to say, yeah, you're equal. Technically, yeah, I'm equal, but, the attitude to the way I'm treated isn't, like I'm not treated equally. I'm still called crazy and fucking whatever online because I write, and the guy without a degree and no training, but, who lies and doesn't and just makes stuff up and argues with things that, aren't true, he's a journalist. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah. But I'm saying, but that's really just that's the line between, when you hear about critical theory, it's like, well, yeah, it's that's all it is. It's not really that difficult, which is basically like, well, yeah, to say equality, it's one thing to say equality. It's another thing to live it and make it like correct, right? It's the same thing. Critical theory was, it's in like postgrad law school in the US. That's where it came from, but it did expand out to sort of more other intersectional things. And basically it's like, well, yeah, it's one thing to say that we've got the civil rights movement, yes, we've got technically got rights. It's another thing to look at things like mass incarceration or the systems that are now oriented to benefit that. Like, here's a good example of like, actually I'll talk about it. So a good example in tech, for example, because we've been talking about this offline. In tech, this idea that like, female entrepreneurs in tech, female founders, right? The very culture of being a tech founder means that you have to work, nonstop. I've used the story of that time when I won the incubator scholarship for the incubator here, right? And basically they did equality, but they gave me no notice. They gave me 24 hours notice during school holidays when I had 3 kids, one of them autistic who doesn't adjust well, right? So you could technically say, well, she just couldn't make it, and the man could. They had an equal shot. She just couldn't hack it, right? That's that kind of thing versus, oh, we need to make accommodations for her because of this thing, because she's the carer, okay? So this is where the data around, the fact that it's called, the phenomenon is sticky floor. Right, I remember this. This was a PhD back in the day, and I remember this. But it's not so much about glass ceiling, but about sticky floor, which is that women are sort of held back from opportunities because the structures in place around needing to, I'm always moaning about this, like with daycare, like when my kids were little, I was always, even when my husband was home, they'd call me at work to come get him. I'm just always the first point of contact for every part of the kids, and there's a debt there. There's a debt that accumulates there. And that's what, I think a lot of this stuff, so that's the difference, right? So I've often worked with many awesome women in tech and often run rings around the men in spite of how much harder they have to work, because of X, Y, and Z. Well, that's that joke like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, right? Greatest dancer on earth. was Fred Astaire. Ginger Rogers did it backwards in high heels, right? It's like, but he gets considered the best dancer, and that's like the. But that, in tech, that's obviously a big problem, especially with that thing where the hardcore culture. It might be technically true that we can all just show up, and we don't show up to work with the same thing. We show up to work. Work is already the second shift by the time you get to work, because you've got kids off to school. You've got, and again, in an ideal world, obviously men are, a lot of men have sort of gotten their shit together and are, equal partners and stuff. And this is, again, the problem with a lot of this anti-feminist shit, is that it's actually missing the point, which is that feminist analysis is not about men. Well, patriarchy is not blaming men. Patriarchy is just systems and trends and data, and what is more likely not all men, and I do breakfast for my kids. It's like, that's not meaningful in terms of aggregate data and aggregate information, right? And that's always been it's like, well, you're hijacking with anecdote. It's not relevant. There is a shift. Men are taking more, but at the end of the day, women still, we're talking about aggregates. It's like, it's not about you and your feelings, for fuck's sake. But yeah, so school always contacts my wife for our kids, and have never been capable of contacting me until I moved to America. Yeah. So I moved to America. I'll move to America. Help. I will. Any day. I fucking hate it. But yeah, it's not really that hard, but unfortunately, because you've got these propaganda machines that are dedicated to making feminism the enemy, it's like, well, they're arguing with something they made up, which is that feminism is about hating men. It's not. It's just not. It's about structural disadvantage, and patriarchy is just about structural disadvantage that favors men, and it's looking at data, it's looking at trends, it's looking at, a scientific approach to history, as Marx once said, and looking at systemic things and systemic change. And you can do that with race, you can do that with LGBT, you can do that with trans people, and that's basically what critical theory is basically the work technically has been done, but it's also not done. It's ongoing, and like, we need to look at these sort of biases and various other things. Like, it's not that controversial, especially in the legal system. When you like, critical theory came out of law school, right? It came out of postgrad law, which was around justice and jurisprudence, right? Jurisprudence is just the study of law, right? Study of law, philosophy of law, legal systems, that sort of theory of law. I think I'm not sure. I think it's, I really should know this, but it's like hegemony. You know what it means, but I've never actually looked up a specific line definition of it. But it's basically, studying the law, right? And theory of law. But in jurisprudence, right, it's got this which is, the whole sort of the way that the system has been designed. It was designed when Black people were not considered human, right? And this is what The Voice is as well. I could talk about The Voice next week, actually, or another time, because I do want to actually do a proper thing on The Voice, which is the fact that when our Constitution was drafted, Indigenous people were not considered human. They were not considered citizens. They were not considered owners of the land, and that you need to be able to revisit that. And there's going to be a portion of people who find that threatening, okay, because they're reactionary, and also there's money and hate, okay? There's money but it's not, like, The Voice is not controversial. I don't oppose The Voice. I just don't think that, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but usually in the current climate with Murdoch Press sowing doubt and the narratives, when you know your history about like referendums and that sort of stuff, it's highly likely to get a no. But that's, again, that's just the history. It may be the one that it may go against the historical trend, because sentiment is. But one thing I can tap into is the electorate very well. I think you'll know that during the election, I called a few seats that people were taken by surprise. That took people by surprise, like my own seat. And I was like, no, this is going to Labor. Uh, and people were like, nah, no, it's a blue ribbon seat. I said, no, it's going to Labor. And it did. And so one thing I'm good at, and I just go, the sentiment of the electorate and the timing, because people are economically insecure, people tend to vote for status quo when things are like unstable, or people sense that they don't like change. Like there's a lot to get up against with the yes, Batman's not a seat anymore. That annoyed me, isn't it? Hang on. Oh fuck! It's too many things. I can't hold too many thoughts in my head at the same time, because I actually, I do actually, believe it or not, prepare for these things. But I'm pretty sure Batman isn't a seat anymore, if I remember correctly. But that, yes. What happened? Did I go? I think I went. Windows is, I think, what's going on? Windows is doing a thing. I think it's trying to run updates. Are you fucking kidding me? What the fuck? I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm still on or not. Let's wait and see, because I've got a spinny thing and I can't see. So I'll just keep talking. I can't see the chats or anything because it's gone like it's stupid. Anyway. Oh, well, whatever. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. Well, I think I should go then, because I don't know if I'm on and I don't want to keep talking. Hang on, let me just message you, Matt. Did I disappear? Matt's there, I'll message you and I'm like, tell me if I disappeared. Okay, all right, I'll keep talking then. I just can't interact with the chat. That sucks. But yeah. She's just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. He said it's kind of funny, and I have no fucking idea what the fuck's going on, because there's just a spinny grey, it's greyed out like a takeover and a spinning thing, and I don't know what the fuck's going on with the computer. So, but I'm still there. Windows has entered the chat. Yeah, I fucking need a new computer. It's just add that to the fucking list of shit. Feel free to become a patron if anyone else other than Matt's watching who's already a patron. I need to start. Maybe I need to. I've got a colonoscopy tomorrow, an endoscopy. So part of me is like, well, I wouldn't mind a little bit of cancer. If I could have a little bit of cancer, that would be good, because I wanted just enough to set up a GoFundMe so that I could do. Is that dark? See, dark jokes. See, they have their place, but like, you don't. That's at my expense, not anyone else's. So anyway, but I can't really interact with the chat, which sucks, unless you're going to copy and paste what you put in, but I don't think that's going to work. Jeff messaged me and said he can still see and hear me as well. So it's still just going, but whatever. I don't know what the fuck's going on. The computer's like saying I'm dead, so I don't know what's going on. But I was, yeah, so, but it is really annoying, because I didn't expect any of this really to be the way that it, to go the way that it went. Like, I'm just, like, that interaction did actually, like I said, I could lie and pretend it didn't get under my skin, but it fucking did. And it was a really asshole thing to do, because, like, I have never positioned myself as anything other than just figuring stuff out, like, and hoping people come along for the ride. I've misspoken. I've mishandled things. You may notice that I've archived a lot of my old content, not because I'm embarrassed of it, but because I don't really want that out there optically, because I don't want my association with these people to be the thing that, like, it's already bad enough. Like, I've had to actually say, I'm not gender critical. I'm just a feminist, and I just oppose censorship. It's nothing. But, I think, you can. One thing I've always tried to do is commit to honesty and learning from my mistakes, and hoping that I can show others that you can just set up a thing and do it. And, you have your bad days and your good days, and you have your tech dramas, and you're fun, and you never know what's going to happen. You interact with the chat, you get some, so Judith is here too. Matt's Matt's relaying the chats to me on my phone. Hi, Judith. So we're still good. Just don't know what the fuck's going on with the computer. But that's okay. We'll get there. I'm going to record what fucking happens. Hang on. I'm going to put this and I'll post this on Twitter, what actually happened here. So like, this is like, I've just got this. It's not showing anything. It's just, you can only see my light reflected in the screen. See, it's got that, anyway, activate Windows. Anyway, so, but yeah, so I never expected this, and all I've ever done, I don't consider myself anything. I'm frustrated, obviously, that it's not paying for itself. I mean, that's obviously always going to be a frustration. I'm also frustrated that some of the frustrations that I'll express would be because I gave up so much stuff to defend these people who have just turned around to be horrible, and they have no concept of the cost because they're off getting Daily Wire money and they're off pandering to right-wingers and liars, and, you know, they're off being cam girls and bullying me because I refused to do that. And I've paid a price for that, which is, you know, alienating portions of the audience that I had. My ability to get corporate clients is affected by this, by my relationship with these people. My ability to sell myself is limited, okay? And my reach has been cut off because you guys fucking can't play nice on social media, and your only go-to is to bully and report and harass people to the point where they end up algo fucked. And it's not even, it's just, and I'm not even saying like that they should be grateful. I'm saying that they should pause for a minute and think about those who are actually putting, you know, like why people might not want to interact with you or elevate you or promote what you've got to say, even though there's always been a grain of truth in, you know, the reason why this fucking funnel works is because they're operating on a grain of truth, and they've blown it out of proportion, and they've obviously turned it into something massive and like a huge moral panic that is ultimately voting, you know, causing women to go against their interests and stuff. But, you know, it's, you know, this massive, big fucking gender critical boogeyman. And it's like, well, no, we're just, it's taken years and years and years to get to a point where things are just common sense, that there is a legal distinction for sex and gender, and that there are cases where women should be able to discriminate, and that's okay. And it's not, you know, it's not a far right view to say that. It's just democracy at work and pluralism at work and fucking common sense, and taking more than, you know, taking the fact that it took how many years to get that clarified is bonkers to me. Like the fact that I'm still having to talk about this 8 years after I like first found out that I thought that maybe this conflict existed is absolutely astonishing, because it's just common sense. But, you know, I'm not going to sit there and pretend that it went well for me. It cost me a lot. Right, I was doing fine. Right, I was actually, you know, like got me at a time when I had a little more time on my hands because I wasn't well. I'm still not that well, but you know, I'm better than I was. And you know, but then obviously COVID hit and accelerated a lot of this stuff, and we're all building. You know, a lot of people really forget that this woke shit. There wasn't really any left-wing analysis of this phenomenon, or good faith left-wing analysis when I started. And it got very much co-opted by the right, and they started, you know, obviously releasing all of these books. And, you know, you're seeing that, that Vivek guy is running for the Republican ticket at the moment, where he wrote Woke Inc. But that's coming from the right-wing perspective, where they ignore capitalism. They ignore the obvious, which is that this is just, it's just a new form of like, it's colliding interests. So there was no real left-wing analysis of this stuff. Like even the people that I look to, like, you know, Matt McManus and Ben Burgess and, you know, a lot of those left-wing commentators, you forget that they were asleep on this too for many, many years. And, you know, and it's like, well, I sat there and I paid the price for it. And I pissed off the right and I pissed off the wokies, and I paid the price, and I've been left behind by all of this stuff. And I need to, you know, obviously, and it hasn't even really been my focus. My focus has been on obviously the radicalization aspects and the online aspects of this, because that's what I do, which is the, you know, online behavior stuff. And it just broke, and everyone acts like that's obvious now, but it wasn't obvious at the time. And that's the problem, which is that now you've obviously got all these people that are fucking elevating themselves as experts, and I'm tedious and I'm boring and I act like I have answers. Well, I do fucking have answers because I gave up my fucking career to help you, you dumb fuckheads. But anyway, I think I'm going to go because I've actually got to go and take my petition to buy Taya a non-spinny circle computer. I know, right? It hasn't come back. It's just sitting there doing that. I don't even know if I'll be able to hang up. Might have to, I don't know how, if I can, yeah. But anyway, become a patron, donate so I can get a new computer because this is fucking, okay, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Anyway, I love you. I'm just I'm not trying to do anything other than like survive. I've always been in good faith and I hope you stick with me on this. I'll continue to do analysis. I am going to try and, I do need to move forward and try to do pre-records and stuff, but it's not really, like I don't like it. It's boring. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't want to do edited, pre-scripted videos. I like just riffing and, I'm not interested in doing that. And if I do, obviously I'll have the podcast and stuff. They're a bit more structured and stuff, and that's coming. But, I don't want to, like my son, he's doing YouTube and he's doing really well. And he likes the editing. I fucking hate it. I find it boring. But what's funny is that there's this whole thing where they're all like, oh, I'm banned, I'm persecuted, I'm like blah, blah, blah. I'm always banned and this stuff sucks. But she's not. She's just shit. Yeah, okay then. Given that, yeah, it's just an insult. Well, it's not an insult. It's just, it speaks more to you and your duplicitousness that you can't acknowledge that people can fall in the gaps of these things, that you're not persecuted. It's just a problem, okay? This is your brain when when you're not doing analysis of capitalism, which is that a lot of this stuff is automated. It's not a persecution. Conservatives they're boosted. They're not censored. They're boosted because they fucking astroturf everything and they got lots of money to do so. It's a number of different things. But also, I that assumption that I don't test an A/B test and don't know exactly, and I haven't concluded that I know the other things, that I haven't seen like other brand accounts as soon as they are disconnected from my specific Google account that they travel, but they're limited when they're attached to mine. There's something going on at the account level on all of my things that is holding it back. Okay, now I could roll another Twitter account, but I don't want to. I want to fix it. And that's the difference. I'm not a fuckwit who just gets banned and starts and rolls new accounts because I'm not a garbage human being. I actually care about solving the root problem. And the root problem is, first level support that's automated and like bad actors can manipulate that. It's not really rocket science. Okay. It's not claiming that you're persecuted. It's pretty funny that you sit there and claim to speak for a whole bunch of people that don't actually exist, even though you're like, well, where are they then? Well, I don't know. You're talking for them. Where are they? Where are they? Where are you organising off-site? I know that you are. I'm not dumb. Again, I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm saying I'm not dumb. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. Thanks for watching and thank you for bearing through this. It's very weird. And I will be back. I'm going to try and start streaming like at least 2 or 3 times a week so I can get back on the horse and stuff. But I have been wanting to quit, but I realize that I don't want to. I actually just enjoy doing it. I just need to reframe how I am doing things, moving forward. Right. So it's now just, it'd be nice if I can make a living from it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I need to sort of just recalibrate. Okay. And so bear with me while I figure that out if you can. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go. I've got stuff to do and I've got to go and clean my colon. There you go. See? Quality content. Take care. I love you. Hopefully I can hang up. If I can't, then bye. Okay. Bye. Not letting